I remember the exact moment the phone call came. It was just past midnight. I was lying in bed, the weight of exhaustion pressing down on me when my phone rang. It wasn't a number I recognized. I hesitated before answering. Hello? My voice was thick with sleep. Jake, a woman's voice said, shaky and strained. It's Lila. Ow. She's gone. I sat up, my heart pounding as I scrambled to process the words. What do you mean she's gone? Where is she? I wasn't ready to hear the answer. I couldn't be. She left ... with Henry. The world tilted. Breath caught in my throat. Henry, her childhood love. The man she had promised me didn't matter. The one I'd thought was just a ghost of her past. Where is she now? I could hardly force the words out. My mind raced with images of Leela packing up her things, leaving behind everything we had built. She's gone. For good, Jake? I'm sorry. The line went dead. I couldn't breathe. I stared at the phone in disbelief. Every promise we had made, every quiet morning with Emily, every laugh we shared over dinner, it all felt like a cruel joke now. How had I not seen this coming? Had I been that blind? I didn't even notice the sound of Emily's footsteps until she appeared in the doorway. She was rubbing her eyes, looking at me, confused. Daddy, why is Mummy's stuff gone? I opened my mouth to speak but found nothing. What was I supposed to say? That her mother had chosen someone else over us? She's not coming back, sweetheart, I whispered, pulling her into my arms. And in that moment, I couldn't decide if I was crying for her or for myself. The next few hours felt like a blur. I sat there, holding Emily close, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on me. How could Leela do this? How could she just leave like that, without a word? For years, I had believed in us, believed in our family, and now it all felt like a lie. The silence in the house was deafening. The only sound was Emily's soft breathing as she drifted off to sleep in my arms. I stared at the empty space where Lila's things used to be, the room feeling colder than it ever had. Her absence echoed through every corner of our home. I couldn't stop the thoughts from flooding my mind. What went wrong? Was I not enough? Had I missed something? Had she been unhappy for years, and I hadn't noticed? Or had she always been in love with Henry, just waiting for the right moment to leave? I tried to push the thoughts away, but they wouldn't stop. They gnawed at me, relentless and cruel. The phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Lila. It was short, almost cold. I can't do this anymore, Jake. I need to be with him. I stared at the message, the words like a slap to my face. I wanted to reply, to scream at her, but I knew it wouldn't change anything. She had made her choice. And now we were left to pick up the pieces. I didn't know how long I sat there, holding Emily, before my phone rang again. It was Sarah. Jake, are you okay? Her voice was filled with concern, and for a moment, I wondered if she had already heard. I don't know, Sarah, I said, my voice breaking. She's gone. She left. For him, after everything. Jake, I'm so sorry, Sarah said softly. You don't have to go through this alone. Come to the cafe. We can talk, okay? I nodded, even though I knew she couldn't see me. I didn't have the strength to say more, so I just hung up. I drove to the cafe, my mind a haze of confusion and anger. When I walked in, Sarah was already waiting. She looked up at me, her face full of worry. Jake, she paused, seeing the hollow look in my eyes. I don't even know what to say. Why, Sarah? I asked, my voice low. Why did she leave us? After everything we had, ... After Emily, ... I trailed off, my words failing me. I couldn't even make sense of it in my head. She's messed up, Jake, Sarah said, her tone gentle. She's not thinking clearly. People do stupid things when they're in pain. You need to focus on what's best for you and Emily. I nodded, but the words didn't help. Nothing felt real. All I could think about was how empty the house felt without Lila, how Emily's face had lit up every time her mother walked through the door. Now that light had gone out. I just... I don't understand how she could do this, I whispered. How she could leave us like this. I thought we were happy. Sarah reached across the table, placing a hand on mine. You were, Jake. You just didn't know what she was hiding. I wanted to believe her, but I wasn't sure anymore. I didn't know if I'd ever understand what had gone wrong. I'd never felt so lost in my life. The days after Leela left felt like they didn't belong to me. I didn't know where I ended and the emptiness began. Our house, once filled with laughter and the hum of daily life, now felt like a hollow shell. I could still hear her voice in the back of my mind, but it wasn't enough to fill the silence. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the breakfast cereal I'd poured for Emily. She wasn't downstairs yet. It had been 2 days since Leela left, and Emily still hadn't asked about her mother. Maybe she didn't want to, or maybe she was just too young to understand the gravity of it. Either way, I wasn't ready to tell her the truth. Not yet. The sound of little feet running down the stairs broke my thoughts. Emily appeared in the doorway, wearing her favorite pajamas, her hair a tangled mess, looked up at me, her eyes wide with curiosity. "Where's Mummy, Daddy?" Her voice was small, tentative. I froze, the words caught in my throat. It had only been a few days, but it felt like a lifetime. How was I supposed to explain this? How was I supposed to make sense of something that didn't make sense? She's gone for a while, sweetheart, I said, my voice shaky. But she'll be back soon? The words tasted like ash in my mouth. I couldn't lie to her, not like this. But I couldn't break her heart either. Emily didn't seem to question me further, which was a relief. She sat down at the table, eating her cereal in silence, unaware of the storm swirling in my mind. I was about to ask if she wanted to go to the park when my phone buzzed on the counter. It was a text from Lila. My stomach twisted as I read it. "I'm sorry, Jake. I know this is hard, but I had to leave. I can't be what you need anymore. Henry makes me feel alive again. Please understand." I stared at the words, my hands shaking. She was still with him, still clinging to this idea that he was the answer. It felt like a slap in the face. She wasn't even sorry for breaking us. She was just sorry that I was suffering. I threw my phone on the counter, the screen cracking slightly against the surface. Emily looked up, startled by the sound. "Daddy, you okay?" I didn't answer right away. I didn't trust myself to speak without breaking down. I walked over to the sink, trying to compose myself. But nothing about this felt composed. Nothing about this felt real. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a call from Sarah. "Hey, you there?" Sarah's voice was warm, but I could hear the concern in it. I hadn't spoken to her in a day or two, but I knew she was worried. "I'm here," I said, my voice hoarse. "It's just... I don't know, Sarah. I keep trying to make sense of it, but I can't. Leela, she... She left us for him, and she's not even sorry. She's just moving on like it's nothing." There was a long pause on the other end, and I could almost hear her thinking, "Jake, you have to understand. You can't keep holding on to this. She made her choice. You have to do what's best for you and Emily now." I knew she was right. I had to move on. But how? How did you just forget 6 years of your life? How did you stop loving someone who had once been everything to you? "Yeah, I guess," I said, my voice trailing off. She said, softer now. "It's okay to be pissed. It's okay to be hurt. But you can't let it consume you. Emily needs you." I looked over at her, still eating her cereal, her little face so innocent, so unaware of the mess her mother had left behind. I wanted to believe Sarah, to believe that I could get through this. But it didn't feel that simple. "Thanks, Sarah," I whispered, suddenly feeling the weight of everything. "I'll try." "Good. Come over tonight. We'll figure this out together. You're not alone, Jake. You've got people who care about you." The call ended, and I let out a long breath, feeling a bit lighter. At least I wasn't alone in this. I still had Emily, and I still had Sarah, but it didn't make the pain go away. It just made it easier to bear. Later that afternoon, I managed to drag myself to the grocery store. I wasn't sure if I was buying food for Emily or just for something to do. I wasn't hungry, and neither was she. But I had to keep moving. I couldn't just stop and wallow in my grief, not when Emily needed me. While I was picking up some milk, my phone buzzed again. Another text from Lila. "I miss you, Jake, but I can't come back. I've made my choice." I stared at the message, the finality of it crushing me. I should have been angry. I should have told her off. But instead, I just felt numb. It wasn't until I heard Emily's voice calling out from the other aisle that I realized I'd been standing there for minutes, lost in the words of someone who no longer existed in my life. "Daddy, I'm done." I took one last look at the screen, my finger hovering over the reply button, but there was nothing to say. So I locked my phone and slipped it into my pocket. It was time to go home. It was a cold, gray afternoon when the knock came at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I never liked surprises these days. But when I opened the door, I saw Leila standing there, her face a mixture of guilt and determination. And then I saw him, Henry, standing behind her like he owned the world. His smug smile hit me like a punch to the gut. "Jake," Leila said, her voice soft, almost apologetic. "We're here to pick up my things." I could barely look at her. I could feel the anger boiling inside me, but I swallowed it down. I didn't want to make this harder than it already was. For Emily's sake, I had to keep it together. But seeing Henry standing there, like he was part of this part of my life, part of the destruction Leila had caused, it took everything I had not to lose it. "I didn't expect you to show up like this," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I looked at Leila first, then Henry. "I didn't think I'd have to watch you walk out with him." Henry stood there with his arms crossed, looking like he didn't have a care in the world. "It's not about you anymore, mate." "She made her choice," he said, his tone dripping with smugness. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I wanted to lash out, to tell him off, to make him feel even a fraction of the pain I was feeling, but I couldn't. Not with Leila there, not in front of her. Lila's gaze flickered between me and Henry, a wave of guilt crossing her face. "Jake, you don't get to apologize, Leila." I cut her off, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "You don't get to walk back into my life and pretend like none of this matters. You left me, left Emily." Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't say anything. Henry just stood there, his hands still crossed over his chest like he was watching some kind of show unfold before him. I wanted to tear him apart right then and there, but I kept my hands clenched by my sides. "I didn't want this," Leila whispered, her voice breaking. "I never meant for this to happen, but Henry, he's been there for me, Jake, in ways you weren't." I felt a sharp pain in my chest at her words, as if they were a blade cutting through me. "So that's it? You just gave up on us? On everything we had?" Leila nodded slowly, her voice barely audible. "I don't know how to fix this. I just... I need him." I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to remind her of everything we'd been through, of how we had built a life together. But instead all I could do was stand there, staring at her, at Henry, feeling like a fool. Henry finally spoke again, his voice laced with that same superiority. "Look, mate, it's done. She made her choice. You can't just hang on to something that's already over. Move on." The way he said it, like he had every right to be here, every right to speak to me like that, made my blood boil. But I couldn't do anything. Leila had already chosen him. He was the one she wanted. "You've won, Henry," I said, the bitterness in my voice so sharp I could taste it. "You've got her. You've always had her. But I'm not going to beg. I'm not going to fight for someone who doesn't want me." Leila's face crumpled at my words, but I couldn't bring myself to feel sympathy for her. Not now. Not after everything. "Please," Leila said, stepping forward, her voice filled with regret. "I never meant to hurt you, Jake, but I know," I snapped, cutting her off. "You made your choice, Leila. You walked away from me and Emily. And now it's too late." Her tears fell freely now, and I could see the guilt in her eyes. But it wasn't enough. Not anymore. Henry stepped forward, pushing Leila gently behind him. "I think it's time we go," he said, his voice firm, almost as if he were in charge. As if he had control of everything now. I couldn't look at him any longer. I turned away, walking into the living room to give them space to collect her things. But the pain was still there, gnawing at me. This was the reality now. This was my life without Leila. I couldn't shake the feeling that everything I had believed in was a lie. All those years, all those quiet mornings, the late-night talks, the promises we had made, they had all been a joke. And now, here I was, trying to pick up the pieces of a life I didn't even recognize anymore. I could hear the sound of Leila's things being packed, the rustling of clothes, the soft thud of things being thrown into boxes. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't tear myself away. This was it. This was the end. Leila came into the living room one last time, holding a box of her things. "Goodbye, Jake," she said softly, almost apologetically. "I'm sorry." I nodded, though the words felt heavy on my tongue. I wanted to say something, to yell, to scream at her for everything she had done. But all I could do was look at her one last time, knowing it would be the last. "Goodbye, Leela," I said, my voice barely a whisper. She walked out the door, and with her, so did my past. The first day without Leela felt like a hollow ache in my chest. I woke up early, too early, with the weight of the world pressing down on me. Emily was still asleep, her little chest rising and falling with the peacefulness that only children seem to know. I should have felt comforted by her presence, but instead, it reminded me of everything that had been ripped away. I had to move forward. For her, but how? I stood in front of the mirror, looking at the stranger staring back at me. I hadn't shaved in days. My hair was a mess. I looked like someone who had lost everything, which, in a way, I had. Lila, Emily's mother, had walked out of our life, and now I was left to pick up the pieces. I wanted to scream, to lash out, but that wouldn't fix anything. It wouldn't bring her back. It wouldn't make Emily stop asking where Mummy was. I needed to do something. Anything. I grabbed my phone and sent a quick text to Sarah. "Can you meet me? I need to talk." I didn't expect her to reply so quickly, but she did. "Of course, I'll be there in an hour." I took a quick shower and dressed in the most ordinary clothes I could find. It felt like a mask, like a disguise to get me through the day. I walked into the kitchen to make Emily breakfast, trying to act like everything was normal, though I could feel the emptiness creeping into my bones. As I flipped the pancakes, the doorbell rang. I hadn't even noticed the time passing. I wiped my hands on a towel and opened the door to find Sarah standing there, looking concerned but determined. "You okay?" she asked softly, stepping inside, when I gestured for her too. I shook my head, feeling the tears threaten again. "Oh, I'm not okay. But I don't know how to fix it. I don't know what to do next." She gave me a small, understanding smile and sat down at the kitchen table. "Jake, the fact that you're even asking that shows you're not as lost as you think. You're going through something monumental. You're allowed to feel this way." I dropped down into the chair opposite her, running a hand through my hair. "I just feel... useless. Like everything I did, everything we had, is just gone. Lila's gone, and now I'm just... here, trying to make sense of this mess." Sarah's expression softened. "You're not useless. You're a good father, Jake, and you're allowed to hurt. But you can't stay stuck here. For Emily's sake, you need to start rebuilding." Her words sank in. She was right, of course. Couldn't just stay in this limbo forever. Emily needed me to be strong. But how could I be strong when my world felt like it was falling apart? "I don't know where to start," I admitted. "Start with you, Jake," Sarah said, leaning forward. "You need to take care of yourself first. That's how you'll be there for Emily." Her words hit me like a slap to the face. I hadn't thought about myself in weeks, not since everything fell apart. All I had done was wallow in my own grief. It was time to change that. A few days later, I found myself standing in front of a local gym, staring up at the building like it was a fortress I had to breach. I didn't feel ready. I didn't feel strong enough. But I knew I had to start somewhere. I walked in, the sound of weights clanging and the low hum of the machines filling my ears. The smell of sweat and rubber hit me as soon as I crossed the threshold. A guy behind the counter smiled at me, clearly used two newcomers. "First time here?" he asked. "Yeah," I replied, my voice rough. I need to make a change." He nodded, handing me a form to fill out. I was still hesitant, unsure, but I filled it out and handed it back, feeling the weight of my decision settle on my shoulders. This was a step toward regaining control of my life. I threw myself into the workouts. Every morning I forced myself to go, even when I didn't feel like it. The physical pain was a welcome distraction from the emotional pain that still gnawed at me. The gym became my refuge, a place where I could focus on anything other than the wreckage of my marriage. A few weeks into this new routine, I noticed something. I was starting to feel stronger, not just physically, but emotionally. The tension in my chest, the constant weight of despair, started to lift. I could breathe again. I could think again. But there was still a part of me that missed Lila, that part of me that wondered if I had done something wrong. I couldn't stop thinking about her, couldn't stop wondering if I should have fought harder for us. But every time those thoughts crept into my mind, I reminded myself of why I was doing this. I was doing this for me. For Emily, not for her. One evening, after a particularly brutal workout, I sat down on a bench, drenched in sweat. That was when I saw Sarah across the room, watching me with a concerned look. She approached, her eyes soft but knowing. "You're looking better," she said, sitting next to me. I wiped my forehead with a towel, catching my breath. "I feel better." Sarah smiled. "I knew you would. But you're not just doing this for the gym, right?" I paused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you're doing this for yourself, right? You're rebuilding, Jake. You're not just trying to forget what happened. You're changing." I let her words sink in. I had been so focused on trying to fix things for Emily for the future that I hadn't really considered what this was doing for me. I wasn't just moving on, I was becoming stronger. I was starting to take control of my life again. "I guess I am," I said, finally feeling like the man I used to be was starting to resurface. "I don't want to just survive. I want to live again." The gym had become more than a place for me to work out. It was where I was slowly, painfully reclaiming my life. And while Lila and Henry's faces still lingered in my thoughts, they didn't have the power to define me anymore. I spent weeks turning the thought of revenge over and over in my mind like a broken record. Now the idea of making Lila feel the pain I was going through was seductive. I imagined confronting her, tearing into her with all the hurt and anger I had bottled up for so long. It felt like the only way to gain some kind of justice, some kind of closure. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized something. I was tired. Tired of carrying the weight of this bitterness, this need to make her pay. Was it worth it? Would it really make me feel better to see her suffer the way I had? Or would it just drag me deeper into a hole of resentment I'd never crawl out of? I sat on the edge of my bed one night, staring at my phone, the message from Lila still sitting in my inbox. "I'm sorry, Jake. I know this is hard, but I had to leave. I can't be what you need anymore. Henry makes me feel alive again. Please understand." I wanted to throw my phone across the room, but instead I put it down and sighed. The old me would have sent her a furious text, maybe even called her up to scream. But that was the past, wasn't it? If I wanted to move forward, I couldn't keep holding on to the past. But it wasn't that simple. Couldn't let go of the anger so easily. And every time I saw Henry's smug face in my mind, I felt it all over again, the betrayal, the hurt, the humiliation. I couldn't just forgive them. Not yet. Maybe not ever. That's when I remembered Sarah's suggestion. She'd told me to get help, to talk to someone who could help me sort through all the mess in my head. I wasn't sure about therapy. Felt like an admission of weakness. But the thought of continuing like this, drowning in my own thoughts, started to feel worse. I picked up the phone and dialed the number of a therapist Sarah had recommended. "Hello?" The voice on the other end was calm, welcoming. "Hi, this is Jake Calloway. I'm looking to schedule a session." My voice was shaky. I'd never done this before. After a brief exchange, we set a date. I hung up feeling a little lighter. Maybe this was the right step, even if I wasn't entirely sure. A few days later, I found myself sitting across from Dr. Taylor, the therapist. The room was cozy, with soft lighting and calming colors. I wasn't sure what to expect. I thought I'd just spill my guts and somehow feel better. But the truth was, it wasn't that simple. "Jake," Dr. Taylor said after a few minutes of silence, "why don't you tell me what brought you here?" I hesitated, staring at my hands. "Lila, she left me. And our daughter. She left for someone else. And I can't stop thinking about it. I want to make her feel what I'm feeling. But I also know that won't help. I don't know what to do." He nodded, his gaze soft but steady. "It's normal to feel anger, Jake, but holding on to that anger, letting it consume you, won't give you the peace you're looking for. Tell me, what do you want most right now?" I thought about it. Peace. Closure. To stop feeling like I was drowning in my own rage. I just want to be okay again. It's for me and Emily. He leaned forward slightly. "That's a good place to start. But here's the thing, revenge won't give you that. It'll only keep you tied to the past." I thought about that for a long time. Dr. Taylor's words weren't what I wanted to hear, but they made sense. What was I really hoping for? To see Lila suffer? To watch Henry lose everything? Would it heal me? Would it fix what was broken? I knew the answer. It wouldn't. It would only prolong the pain. The next few days were difficult. I found myself reflecting on everything Lila had done, everything I had ignored. It was hard to admit, but the truth was that she wasn't perfect. She had flaws so many that I had overlooked. I had seen the good in her, the side of her that made me fall in love with her. But I had missed the cracks. The way she always sought comfort outside of our relationship. How she couldn't communicate when things got tough. The way she shut me out instead of trying to fix things. As much as I loved her, I had to face the reality. She wasn't the person I had built her up to be. I met with Sarah the next day, and she could tell something was different. "You've been quiet," she said, raising an eyebrow as we sat at the cafe. I shrugged, just thinking. She smiled gently. "What about?" "Everything," I said. "I've been holding on to this anger, this need for revenge. But it's not helping. It's just keeping me stuck. I've realized that I need to focus on me, on Emily. I can't keep holding on to what's gone." Sarah looked at me for a moment, and then she nodded. "Jake, I'm proud of you. You're doing the right thing." I felt a strange sense of relief, like a weight was finally lifting off my shoulders. The anger wasn't gone. Not yet. God. But I was starting to see that holding on to it wouldn't fix anything. It would only make me more bitter, more broken. "I think I'm finally starting to heal," I said quietly. Sarah smiled. "You will, Jake. One step at a time." And for the first time in weeks, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could start rebuilding my life on my terms. It was a quiet Sunday morning when I found myself sitting across from my mother, Ruth, at the kitchen table. The house felt empty, just like the last few weeks had, but for some reason her presence always grounded me. She wasn't one for many words, but when she spoke, she had a way of making you listen. "Jake," she said, her voice soft but firm, "you can't keep letting Lila control your life, even from a distance." I shifted uncomfortably in my seat. "I don't know what you mean, ma'am. I'm just trying to get through the day without falling apart. I've been doing that for weeks." She didn't look at me, her hands busy folding the newspaper. "That's the problem, Jake. You're existing, not living. You can't move forward if you keep looking back. Lila's gone, and you have to make a choice. Either you forgive her and let her back in, or you let her go completely." I stared at the table, trying to process her words. Could I forgive Lila? Could I even allow her back into my life after everything she had done? I had been carrying so much anger, so much resentment. But was it worth holding on to? "You're right, ma'am," I said quietly, my voice rough. "I've been stuck. I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. One minute I want to make her pay for leaving me and Emily. The next, I just want her back. But I don't know if I can trust her again, not after everything." Ruth finally looked at me, her gaze soft but knowing. "You don't have to trust her right away, Jake. Trust yourself first. You've grown stronger. Don't let her mistakes define your future. Not this endless cycle of pain." Her words lingered in my mind, but I wasn't sure I was ready to let go of the anger just yet. It felt like the only thing I had left, the only thing that kept me from completely breaking down. Just as I was about to speak, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Lila. My heart raced as I read her message. "Jake, I know I've hurt you, and I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I need you to know how much I regret leaving. I still love you and Emily. I want to fix things, if you'll let me." I felt a knot in my stomach. I didn't know what I expected from her, but this wasn't what I wanted to hear. Not right now. Not when I was still reeling from the fallout. I don't know how to feel, ma'am," I said, my voice tight. "She says she regrets it, but can I believe her? Can I really trust her again after everything?" Ruth reached across the table, her hand warm on mine. "Trust is something you rebuild, Jake, but it has to come from you. Not from what she says, but from what you feel. You've been so focused on what she did to you that you've forgotten what you need to move forward. Do you still love her?" I didn't know if I still loved Lila, or if I was just holding on to a memory of what we had. The love I had for her had been deep, but had it faded? Or was it just buried under all the anger? "I don't know, ma'am. I don't know if I can love her again after what she did," I admitted, my voice breaking. "But I can't keep living like this. I have to move on. I have to find a way to let go." She nodded, her expression soft. "Then you will, Jake, in your own time, and you'll be okay." The words didn't feel like enough, but they gave me a sense of direction. Maybe I didn't have to make a decision right now. Maybe I could just take it one step at a time. Later that evening, as the sun began to set, I sat down on the couch with Emily, watching her play with her toys. The house felt quieter than it had in weeks. There was no chaos, no arguments, just the peaceful sound of Emily's laughter filling the space. I realized that no matter what happened with Lila, I still had her. Emily was my anchor, and no amount of pain could take that away from me. She was all the reason I needed to keep moving forward, to rebuild my life. The next few days felt different. Lila's apology was still fresh in my mind, but it didn't sting as much. I had made the decision to focus on myself, to rebuild what I had lost. I joined a new work project, something to keep my mind occupied. I spent more time with Emily, making up for the moments I had lost in the haze of anger and grief. And then, a week later, Leela showed up at my door. I didn't know what to expect when I opened the door, but seeing her there looking as lost as I felt shook me. She was still the woman I had loved, but she wasn't the same. Her eyes were filled with guilt and regret. But there was something else too, something that made me feel like I could see through the facade she had built. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, Jake," Lila began, her voice hesitant. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need to ask, ... Can we start over? Can we at least try to make this work?" I wanted to say yes, wanted to run to her and pretend everything could go back to how it was. But I knew I couldn't. I had to make a choice, not for her, but for me. "Can't just forgive you, Lila," I said, my voice firm, but not unkind. "You hurt me. You hurt Emily. But I can't keep living in the past. I need closure, and that means moving forward, not backward." Her face fell, but she nodded. "I understand. I'm sorry, Jake, for everything." I stood there for a moment, looking at her, realizing that as much as I still cared for her, I couldn't keep holding on to the past. I had to let her go, and in doing so, I was finally freeing myself. As she walked away, I felt a strange sense of peace. The power dynamic had shifted. I was no longer defined by her or by the life we had. I was defined by my own choices, and for the first time in a long time, I felt strong enough to make them. The phone buzzed in my hand, and for a split second, I hoped it was Lila, a part of me, the foolish part, still hoped she would come back. But when I looked at the screen, I saw it wasn't her. It was Sarah. "Jake, you're not going to believe this. Henry's in trouble. I just heard from a mutual friend." I frowned. My stomach churned. Of course, Henry was in trouble. He'd always been trouble. But the way Sarah had worded it, like it was something serious, caught my attention. I quickly typed back, "What do you mean trouble?" A few seconds later, her reply came, "He's being investigated for some shady business deals. Apparently it's all unraveling fast. People are talking." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. My first instinct was to laugh. Karma, I thought. It felt good to know that Henry wasn't invincible, that his smug arrogance had a cost. But then, a part of me, one that I didn't want to acknowledge, felt a pang of sympathy. This wasn't just some payback. This was real, and it was about to affect Lila. I didn't even realize I was dialing her number until the call connected. "Jake." Her voice was shaky, like she was unsure of what she wanted to say, or maybe she was just trying to find the right words. "Is it true?" I asked, not bothering to greet her. "Is he really in trouble?" Lila hesitated, then sighed. "Yeah, it's all over the news. I didn't want to tell you, but I can't keep pretending like everything is fine." "You should have told me sooner," I replied, my voice flat. I wasn't angry, but I wasn't forgiving either. "You knew this was coming, didn't you? You knew what kind of man Henry really was." She didn't respond right away. I could hear the faint sound of her breathing on the other end, like she was gathering the strength to admit something. "I made a mistake, Jake," she said quietly, and for the first time since she left, I heard real regret in her voice. "I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I could fix everything by running away with him, but now I don't know what to do. Everything's falling apart." I couldn't bring myself to feel sorry for her. Not yet. Not after everything she'd put me through. "You made your choice, Lila. You walked away from me, from Emily, and now you're paying the price." "I know," she whispered, the guilt in her tone evident. "I didn't think it would end up like this. I thought Henry was different, but he's not. I'm so sorry, Jake. I wish I could take it all back." For a moment I was silent. I wasn't sure what I was feeling. Anger, satisfaction, sympathy. It was a mixture of everything, but none of it felt like enough to heal what had been broken. "I'm not going to pretend that what happened didn't hurt," I said, my voice steady but cold. "But I've moved on, Lila. I'm not the same guy I was when you left. There was a long pause. Then Lila spoke again, her voice softer this time. I've been trying to reach out to you. I know I've hurt you, and I understand if you never forgive me. But I just... I needed you to know that I regret it. I regret everything. I don't need your regret, I said, surprising myself with the sharpness in my tone. I needed you to be here. For me.
For Emily? You're too late for apologies.
The silence stretched between us, the weight of everything hanging in the air. I've been thinking about what you said, she said eventually, about how I need to fix things. But I don't know if I can. Henry's lost everything. I don't even know where I fit in anymore. I wanted to say something harsh, something that would make her feel the full force of the pain she'd caused. But instead, I said something I hadn't expected. You're still choosing him, aren't you? There was a brief, painful silence. I don't know, she admitted. I don't know if I can keep doing this. I don't know if I can keep living with the choices I made. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of her words. It's your choice, Lila. Always has been. When the call ended, I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel anything. I had expected to feel anger, but it was like all that energy had drained out of me. I didn't care about Henry's downfall. I didn't care about Lila's regrets. What mattered now was me, my healing, Emily's future. I had no more room for her mistakes in my life. A week later, I saw the news. Henry's empire had crumbled. His shady deals, his manipulations, they were all out in the open now. Lila's world, the one she had tried so desperately to build with him, was coming undone. The satisfaction I expected to feel didn't come. Instead, I felt something I hadn't anticipated: relief. Lila's world had fallen apart just like mine had, and that, for some reason, felt like justice. But more than that, it felt like a lesson. A lesson in why I had to let go, why I had to stop hoping for someone to come and fix everything. I had to fix it for myself. I could finally see her for who she was, a flawed person like everyone else. She wasn't the woman I had built her up to be, and that realization, while painful, was freeing. I was sitting on the couch when the doorbell rang. At first, I didn't move. It was a Sunday evening, the light from the setting sun casting a warm glow through the windows. The house felt quieter than usual, peaceful, almost. But then the doorbell rang again, sharper this time. Felt like everything was holding its breath. When I opened the door, there she was, Lila, standing in front of me like nothing had changed. Her eyes were tired, her face pale, but there was something else there, too, something that looked like regret. Jake, she whispered, can we talk? I didn't let her in. Instead, I stepped outside and shut the door behind me. I didn't want Emily overhearing. I didn't want any of this to affect her. Is this what you wanted? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. To come back after everything's fallen apart? She didn't immediately respond, and for a second, I wondered if she was going to walk away. But then she took a step forward. I never meant for any of this to happen, she said, her voice shaking. I made a terrible mistake, Jake. I crossed my arms. Is that it? Is that why you're here? Because you regret it? Lila's eyes filled with tears. No, it's not just regret. It's everything. I was selfish, and I've hurt you more than I can ever say. I'm sorry, Jake. I'm so sorry for leaving you and Emily. I was wrong. I stared at her for a long moment. The words were so familiar, so hollow. She had said some of them before when she first left, when she tried to explain herself. I didn't know if I could believe her this time. Was it real? Or was she just trying to make herself feel better? You left us, Lila, I said, my voice tight. You walked away without looking back. You didn't think about Emily. You didn't think about me. You just left. And now you're standing here telling me you regret it? I know, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I can't undo it. But I can try to make things right, if you'll let me. I've learned from my mistakes, Jake. I swear I have. I shook my head, frustration and anger bubbling up inside me. You think I'm just going to forget all the pain you caused? You think I'm supposed to just forgive you because you say you've learned? Lila took a deep breath, stepping closer to me. No, I'm not asking for your forgiveness right now. I'm asking for a chance to prove that I can be better, but I can be the person you deserve. I felt a sharp pang in my chest. Part of me, maybe the part that still loved her, wanted to believe her. But the other part, the part that had suffered through her betrayal, was still so raw. Could I trust her again? Could I risk it? You left me in the darkest place of my life, Lila, I said, my voice shaking. I can't just forget that. I know, she whispered. I don't expect you to. But I'm asking for the chance to show you that I'm not the person who walked away from you. I'm not that person anymore. I stood there, silently, as the weight of her words settled over me. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to hold on to the hope that maybe, just maybe, we could fix this. But the truth was, I didn't know if I could handle the risk again. Gotta let her back into my life and into Emily's life? Could I let her hurt me again? I thought about everything we'd been through. The good, the bad, the broken pieces. I thought about the love we once shared and the damage that had been done. Could I really go back to that? Could I forgive her? Or was it time to walk away for good? You've hurt me, Lila, I said, my voice low, but I don't know if I can let you do it again. Lila's face crumpled, the tears flowing freely now. I don't expect you to just forgive me. But I'm asking you for a chance to prove I can change. To prove I can be the person you need me to be. I closed my eyes, the weight of it all pressing down on me. This wasn't just about forgiveness anymore. This was about me, about what I needed to feel whole again. I could feel my mind racing, torn between the desire to hold on to what we had and the reality that I couldn't keep living in the past. I had spent so much time waiting for Lila to come back, hoping for a second chance, but in the end, I had to be honest with myself. I wasn't the same man I had been when she left. I had changed. I had grown. I'd learned to live without her, without the constant pain of wondering if I was enough. And I couldn't throw that away, not for the sake of nostalgia. Not for the sake of a relate of betrayal. I'm sorry, Lila, I said quietly, my voice steady. But I can't keep living in the past. Can't keep holding on to something that's already broken. Lila looked at me with wide eyes, her tears falling silently. Jake, ... please. I shook my head. You made your choice. And I've made mine. She stood there for a long moment, staring at me, as if trying to find some last glimmer of hope in my eyes. But there was nothing left. The past was done. It was time to move on. I have to let you go, Lila, I said softly. And I have to let go of this dream that we can go back to what we were. I'm sorry. With that, I turned and walked inside, closing the door behind me. And for the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. The night was quiet, too quiet. It's the kind of quiet that gives you time to think, to reflect on everything that had brought you here. I stood at the kitchen counter, watching the steam rise from my coffee cup. My mind still tangled in everything that had happened with Lila. It felt like a lifetime ago that we had shared this space. But the echoes of our time together lingered. Emily was still asleep, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a calmness settle over me. I'd spent so much time wondering what could have been, holding on to the hope that one day, Lila would come back, and everything would be okay. But that wasn't reality anymore. That was the past. I heard the soft padding of feet behind me, and I turned to see Emily, her little face sleepy and confused. She rubbed her eyes, then looked up at me with a small smile. "Morning, Daddy," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I smiled back, my heart warming. "Morning, kiddo. You sleep okay?" She nodded, climbing into the chair at the table. "Yeah, I missed Mummy, though." I swallowed hard, fighting the lump in my throat. I had expected this. She'd been asking about Lila more lately, but it didn't make it any easier to hear. "I know, sweetheart. But Mummy's not coming back, and that's okay." She looked at me with wide eyes, searching my face. "Why?" I paused, unsure of how to explain it in a way she would understand. Because sometimes people make choices that hurt other people, and when that happens, you have to let go. It's not always easy, but it's what's best. Emily nodded slowly, accepting my words without much resistance. Maybe she didn't fully understand, but she didn't need to. Not yet. I turned away to finish my coffee, my thoughts drifting back to Lila. She had tried to come back, tried to explain herself. But nothing she said could change the fact that she had left me, left us, when we needed her most. I'd thought about it over and over, about the what-ifs, the could-have-beens, but it didn't matter anymore. I was done asking those questions. I heard my phone buzz on the counter, and I glanced down. It was a message from Lila. Jake, I've been thinking about everything. I know I've made mistakes. And I know I can't change the past, but I need you to know that I'll always care about you and Emily. I'm sorry for everything. I'll always regret how things ended between us. I stared at the message for a long time, letting the words sink in. She was sorry, but that wasn't enough anymore. I had given her chances. I had waited, hoping she would come back and fix everything, but now I knew the truth. I couldn't keep living in the past. I couldn't keep waiting for someone who wasn't there. I typed out a response, my fingers steady as I wrote, "I've forgiven you, Leela, but I can't go back. I have to move forward, for Emily's sake and mine. I hope you find the peace you're looking for. Goodbye." I hit send and put the phone down, a strange weight lifting off my shoulders. It wasn't about anger anymore. It was about closure. It was about giving myself the permission to move on. Later that afternoon, I took Emily to the park. It was a small, quiet park on the edge of town, a place I used to take her and Lila when things were simpler. The sun was setting, casting a soft glow over everything, and for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. Emily ran ahead of me, laughing as she chased after a butterfly. I sat on the bench watching her, my heart swelling with a love so deep it almost hurt. This was my life now. It wasn't the life I had imagined, but it was mine. And I was going to make the best of it. I thought about the past, about Leela, about the pain, about the betrayal, but it didn't define me anymore. I had spent so much time looking at what I had lost that I hadn't realized what I still had. Emily, my job, my health, and more than anything, my own strength. I had survived the worst of it, and I had come out the other side stronger. "Daddy," Emily called, her face bright with excitement. "Look, I caught a butterfly." I smiled, standing up to walk toward her. "That's awesome, sweetheart. You're fast," she giggled, holding up the butterfly gently in her hands. "I'm going to let it go now. It needs to be free." I watched as she released the butterfly into the air, her eyes following it as it fluttered away. It was a small, simple moment, but it felt like the perfect symbol of where I was in life. Letting go, moving forward, embracing the freedom of my own choices. When we got home that night, I sat on the couch with Emily as she drifted off to sleep, her small hand resting in mine. I thought about everything we had been through. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally ready to let go of the past. I didn't need Lila to be okay. I didn't need her to make things right. I'd already done that for myself. I had found my closure. And now, I was free to move on, to start this new chapter of my life with or without her.